Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pal Stay at Home and Watch Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
So today we're going to be talking about Jojo Rabbit, which came out in 2019 and it's available on Blu-ray. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. A young boy in Hitler's army finds out his mother is hiding a Jewish girl in their home. Let's start off by going down my pros. This movie has one of the directors that I think is really good at satire since Mel Brooks. Waititi is the next generation's Mel Brooks, if you may. He's the satire kind of director. He also acts in his movies. You might know him from the latest movie he's been known for in Marvel Cinematic Universe. He did Thor Ragnarok. But before that, if you're really into underground indie movies, you might know him from What We Do in the Shadows, the movie. There is also the TV show, this TV series, but I'm not really sure if he's involved in the TV series, but I know that he did the movie. He also starred in the movie, which is a really hilarious movie. This movie, based off a novel or based off a book. In the book, all these characters in this movie appear except the character that the director portrays, which is Hitler. Hitler in this movie is the imaginary friend of the young boy, which is Jojo, and it's his best friend. By going off of that, you get a certain level of satire where you get these moments of intense seriousness, but then the character just breaks the fourth wall by adding a joke, and you're there and you get the joke because he's making a World War II reference that only people past World War II will get. For example, I think is right after Jojo finds that the girl's in his house, they run into his room and they don't know what to do, and they say, well, what are we going to do? And then Hitler, which is in Jojo's mind, says, I got it. You burned the house down and you blame Churchill. You know, that's nothing, not even logical, but then he just says it. And this movie, it reminds me of another movie from back in the day that it was Drop Dead Fred, where it's another imaginary friend movie where there's this girl who has an imaginary friend that nobody sees, but we do, you know, as an audience member that we're watching the movie. So it's almost the same concept. And in this movie, they make Hitler at the beginning of the movie start off really friendly, and throughout the movie, he starts getting a little more mean towards Jojo. As the movie progresses, we see Hitler's demeanor change, and I like that as the movie progresses, the war starts changing, but when you start seeing it through Hitler too, he starts getting weaker and he starts losing himself, losing the concept of himself, and that also changes in his clothes and his demeanor and everything, the way he carries himself, the way he acts and starts talking to Jojo, looking and talking down to Jojo. So in a sense, that's another level to the movie that you can see it at. The other point that I really enjoyed about this movie is that it's just not about comedy. There's this emotional level. We don't see it at the beginning, and this is a big spoiler. Jojo loses his mother. He sees himself as like this little Nazi that's going to be growing into power and everything, but then at the end he loses his mother. You feel it, but you didn't see it coming, but then when you rethink about it at the end of the movie, you end up seeing all the connections. And the connections are shoes. The whole point of shoes, that the director's always pointing the camera down towards the shoes. Everybody's shoes, you know, is focusing on different people's shoes. We see this with Scarlett Johansson, which plays the mother. She plays the mother, and it's always her shoes, to the point where at the end, when Jojo discovers her mom being hung, we don't really see her face. We just see the floor, and then we just see her shoes. That moment itself, you don't really need to see the body, you don't need to see the face, you just see the shoes and you get that emotional wave hit you. It's this element that is like, those are the shoes that you saw in other scenes of her dancing, of her moving, of her just walking happily, of her talking to her son. All these scenes of joy just come to this point where these shoes are just hanging still, and the whole element of him having these times of her mom throughout the movie tying his shoes, and now he's trying to tie her shoes when she's dead. It's this whole thing of like, you took care of me, now now I'm trying to take care of you at the end, and I can't even tie your own shoes. And it gets to you. And this movie is a comedy, and you're sitting there and saying, why is this so emotional? Well, this is life. Deal with it, kind of thing. And even at the end of the movie, there's this little poem at the end where it tells you life is going to come with emotions. So, it's just going to happen. So deal with it. Life keeps going on, and that is life. It's going to pass. That's what it is. So for me, this movie had different types of emotions. It's not just comedy. Even Jojo, he was a little boy who was 10 years old. He even said in the beginning of the movie, he fell in love with the girl in his house. She was Jewish, and he was, German Nazi, and he thought that a Nazi couldn't like a Jew, but he did. He fell in love with her. The way it happened, you can see this movie. It's a comedy, it's romantic, and it's serious at the same time. And people will say all these three things happening at the same time in the movie degrades the movie to a certain point, but I think it makes it kind of better in a sense, especially for a younger audience. It's easier to digest for them instead of seeing them digest the movie about war and seriousness, or just basically just comedy and satire. If you mix it, it's almost like giving them medicine with a little bit of sugar on the side. So for me, this movie kind of was well balanced. Now, going on to my cons, the whole idea of Hitler and the way he was trying to be funny at the same time, I actually would have wanted him to be a little more meaner towards the end, and for Jojo to overcome him instead of just with one single kick. Maybe fight him, try to overcome him with his mind. I know that he was imaginary, but maybe try to outwit him in a sense. I know he's imaginary, but in a sense probably lock him up or something, and that way defeat him, not just physically but in his mind kind of thing. Lock him up. That way he would think that he defeated Hitler, the guy he idolized for a long time, or blew him up in a sense, put him in a room, and in that house bomb fell or something. I think they could have done a little more with the character of Hitler instead of just having Jojo kick him out of a window and that was it. We did see earlier in the movie that Hitler jumped out the window when he was running late or something, and then later he came back. So by him kicking him out of the window didn't really do much. Other things in the movie, I would have focused more on the mom, what she was doing, because we just saw her go out and then put a little piece of paper here and there. I know it was from the point of view of Jojo, but I would have basically had Jojo seen more of her, be involved, have probably people come to the house and ask for her, see her have, some meetings in the house, and probably come downstairs when he wasn't supposed to. Things like that would have made him more suspicious, basically suspect her to the point where he could have probably thought of reporting her, himself, and then talk to his invisible friend Hitler and said, should I report my own mom? And had that internal debate, am I a real Nazi? Should I report my mom? With that, I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and what grade he gave this movie.
So because I haven't read the book, my review is going to be based strictly on the movie here. Having seen it for the first time, because I don't watch too many satire films that, of course, make fun of political views or characters and that sort of comedy, sort of light. At times it is refreshing, and I thought this film was able to accomplish that. It's not the first of its kind, I would say, in terms of making fun of Adolf Hitler, but I suppose it's more of a modern take on it. Again, depending on your sense of comedy, it could be hit or miss, depending on, again, the seriousness of your viewpoint on these political views or these political figures. But for me, the film worked. I would say I'm kind of open-minded to these sort of things, and some of the things that happened in the film, they did make me laugh, despite me sometimes, maybe for a second or two, thinking to myself, oh, did they really do that? But yeah, the film, in terms of the comedy, I think it worked. But just like Sal, the thing that really gravitated towards me was when the movie got really serious. Sal mentioned also how the mother died. It kind of came back in full circle about how the mother, who of course was being played by Scarlett Johansson, another actress who was part of the Marvel Universe, as Sal also iterated with the director being Taika Waititi, being in Thor Ragnarok, with the mother representing a viewpoint of goodness, of not agreeing with the war and the ideas that were embellished in it, and how she considered this Jewish girl that she kept in the house to be a human being, basically, who was good, who had rights, and was trying to indirectly impose those ideas onto his son as well, while his son was trying to become, let's be frank, a Nazi himself. It really made me appreciate how the kid then transformed throughout the film. This notion of who you are supposed to be based on this doctrine of whatever that they mentioned in the movie as well, and that if they oppose this doctrine, that bad things could happen, which of course bad things did happen, given the mother's circumstance as an example. And of course, with the imaginary friend of adult Hitler sort of guiding Jojo around, trying to pinpoint him to the sort of person that he was going to become later in life. I love the transformation that he was able to make, the realization that he came to, that it's not about what it is that you're supposed to become, but how you approach it, how you question it, how you align yourself with this, and how you have control over the ideology that you want to be represented of. I definitely see the struggle here that Jojo went through after seeing what happened to his mother and him almost killing the Jewish girl, or having the motivation to kill her. Yeah, it just that the serious tone was the thing that really got to me. Like, the comedy was there, that the whole satire thing, it's there, but when it got down to the serious stuff, I think this is where the film really got to me, and it really hit home. And I think in a lot of ways we can relate to this, in that we sometimes just go with the flow and don't question what it is that we're doing, the sort of things that we are propagating based on our actions, or sometimes based on the stuff that we're not doing as well. And if anything, this is a good film that reminds me of that. And sometimes it's good to just stop for a bit and inquire about what it is that we're doing, and is it something that we ourselves are true believers of, rather than, as this movie exemplified, being a guideline that we're just supposed to follow and that be it. Again, the whole doctrine notion. But in terms of the negative stuff, I felt the same way about Sal, in terms of how the struggle between Jojo and his imaginary friend could have been handled a little bit more. I wouldn't say better, because again, if you take into the whole comedy aspect and whatever, then I can accept what happened at the end with his imaginary friend getting kicked out the window. If they have had more of that serious interaction as well, where Jojo was really on the fence of not going where his imaginary friend wanted him to go. I just wanted maybe that one big culminating moment to sort of exemplify that, yes, this is who Jojo is going to be now going forward after what he has gone through here in the movie. He's going to be able to live with the consequences as well, with protecting this Jewish girl. The movie, I thought, was decently paced. The film was a little over an hour and 30 minutes long. So in the end, I'm going to give the film a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I would encourage you guys to go watch it. If you're not overly sensitive to the sort of comedy that is, I would say, typical to making fun of like Adolf Hitler, or, these political ideas.
Another part of the movie that got really sad to me was really at the end, where Jojo's walking around the city when things are going really bad, and Captain K, played by Sam Rockwell, he's been captured, and he's helping Jojo, and he's telling him that his mom was a really nice person, and he takes Jojo's jacket off, the one that has the SS marks on it, pushes him away and says, "Get away from me, Jew," and he starts spitting on him. Even though he knows he's German, he's trying to basically act like he doesn't know him. He's like, "I don't know you." He's pushing him away, trying to save him, to the point when the other side, the soldiers who are taking over the city, the Russians, I believe, come up and says, "Do you know this?" And he's like, "No, I don't know this Jew." And then he pushes him away. They take Jojo away, and they take Captain K. You just hear some gunshots, and that in itself tells you that they shot Captain K, and Captain K's dead, and Jojo is again alone by himself. And I like the beginning of the movie when they have the Beatles soundtrack in German, and then at the end when they had the David Bowie song at the end also in German. It's kind of this whole thing. To me, it's well balanced in a sense, and the same way Touly said, if you like satire, if you're not sensitive to these kind of jokes, then this is a perfect movie to see. For me, it's going to receive a 7.5 out of 10. I highly recommend this movie. If you really are a fan of the director, you should see this movie. And if you want other recommendations, What We Do in the Shadows is another perfect movie to watch. So that does it for this review of Jojo Rabbit. Please join us next time when we're going to review Searching.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi, I'm calling about a possible... I'm calling to report a missing person.
Okay, who is this regarding?
My daughter. I know I should have called sooner. I just thought that...
That's okay, sir.
Yeah.
The first thing we need to do is file a report.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.